Hello everyone, I'm Becky Goldsmith with Piece of Cake, and I want to talk to you about how to pin your applique pieces to your background. I've already used my overlay and positioned this shape onto the background. My background is on top of my sandpaper board, which keeps the background from shifting as I try to pin this piece into position. Now, because you work hard to get the applique pieces in place on the block, you don't want to pick this up to pin the applique piece in place. So, the first lesson here is that you must pin with the shape flat against your sandboard. Now, when I teach, I notice that many people bring to class these 3/4 inch pins. They're made by Clover. And they're nice pins in that they are easier to pick up. They're a little thicker than I like, and they're actually much longer than I prefer to use. The pins that I use most often are 1/2 inch sequin pins. Now this brand is made by Collins. The other brand that I sometimes use is the Bowen 1/2 inch sequin pins. Now these are shorter pins. Let me put one out here so you can compare. See, it's a much shorter pin. Why do you want to use a shorter pin? Well, let me tell you why. If you pin your pieces with longer pins, there's more of the pin itself sticking out of the fabric. The more pin you have sticking out, the more likely it is for your thread to hang up on the pin as you're sewing. But the other thing is that the longer your pins are, the harder it is to get multiple pins on the shape. So here, where I'm really only able to fit in 2 pins with these longer pins, I actually would want to fit in at least 3 pins, and the 1/2 inch sequin pins make that possible. So I'm going to take these out and set them aside for a moment. And then I want to show you how to use these little pins, because it is true that they are a little trickier to learn how to use. So the first trick, and let me shift this over so you can see what I'm doing. The first trick is to make the pins easy to pick up, and that means either scattering them on your board so that you can pick them up by the head, or putting them in a pin cushion so that you can pull them easily out by their head. As I said, you need to pin with the shape flat against your sandboard. What I do is put the index finger from my hand that is not holding the pin in front of where I want the pin. I take the pin, I'm right-handed, so I take the pin in my right hand, and I'm planting my whole hand down against the sandboard, holding the fabric firmly against the board. I'm going to go into the fabric at a steep angle. And you can wiggle it around a little bit if you have to. Push it through so that you can feel the sandpaper. Surprisingly enough, it does not dull the pins. Then shift your grip on the pin so that you can shove forward with the pin, and I very often scrape the sandpaper. And then lift up with the pin and push down with that finger in front of the pin so that you make a hill that you can shove the pin through, just like that. Where you put your pins is important. Your seam allowance is 3/16 of an inch wide. If you put your pin too close to the edge, you're not going to have room to turn your seam allowance under. If you put your pin too far away from the edge, the edge of the applique is not held firmly in position and it can move around on you. The very best spot to put your pin is 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the applique. And it's important that your pin is parallel to the line you're going to sew. Think train tracks. If you put your pin so that it's perpendicular to the line you're going to sew, you're not getting as much use out of your pin. If you look at this, you'll notice that right here, this is where the pin is doing its work. If you've got more of the length of the pin parallel to this edge, you're controlling more of the edge with the pin. So, like I said, I could fit 3 pins in here. The beauty of being on your sandboard is that you can shift the sandboard so that you can pin more easily from side to side, just like that. And I could get another pin in. I'm going to move my body because of the camera. Put a pin there. Now, to pin a shape this large, really I would not do exactly what I just did. I wouldn't start here and then pin all the way around the thing. If you do that, you're too likely to maybe stretch these areas and move the other side out of position. What I like to do is pick 2 areas that are very far apart from each other, and I would put my first pin in one side and my second pin in the other side. This holds this in position. And then I'd probably come in here and put in another pin. And I would not stop there. You saw how close I put these pins together here. I would pin this entire shape that way. So I'm going to stop the camera, pin the shape, and then come back to you and show you how it looks when it's complete. And here is the shape completely pinned. Now you'll notice that there's only 1 pin down here in this center section. This area of this shape is covered by another piece, so you don't need to put quite as many pins here. If you have neuropathy in your fingers, if you have arthritis or some other finger condition that makes it very difficult to use these smaller pins, then your next best choice is indeed these larger 3/4 inch pins made by Clover. That said, I would encourage you to try using these small pins. Your thread doesn't hang up quite as much when you use them. They do the job very well. They're not particularly expensive. And they work better than anything I've tried pin-wise over the many years I've been appliquing. There are special circumstances in pinning that I'm not covering here. Specifically, that would be how you pin outer points, how you pin very small shapes, how you pin cutaway applique. I'll cover those special pinning circumstances in the videos where I talk about those stitching techniques. Happy stitching!